I started to shift from was like taking away the focus of my training be like, it was all about me and me making gains and me showing off all these cool moves that I could do. And I was like, you know what? My body's telling me right now that this is not what I need to be doing. I need to be shifting that focus. So I started really focusing on trying to make other people better, like I really started honing my teaching voice and just trying to break down these moves for like complete beginners, and just trying to just take away like that need for like feeding my ego of like, I need to be the best at this.
Are you done with being that pregnant or postpartum mom in the gym who is always stuck on the sidelines feeling horrible, saying, how come no one ever told me this? Are you ready to finally say no to a mom life filled with excess weight, injury, overwhelm, and fatigue? Then help is here. Welcome to the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast, where we dive deep into the information you need to be the strongest woman in and out of the gym, even if you are a mom. If you are done going through your pregnancy or postpartum fitness journey clueless and unprepared, if you are ready to commit and say yes to being that badass fit mom who is shredded and stronger than before the baby, well, listen up. Because this is where we talk about all of the things your doctor or trainer never told you about, so that you can achieve the body you want and take your athletic strength and performance to the next level. Get ready, because here's your host, Daisy Bravo.
Well, hello, everybody. I wanted to welcome you today to the Strong Moms Fitness Podcast. And before I jump into our interview today, I wanted to remind you of our contest to win a free Strong Moms Fitness program of your choice. Now, all you have to do is leave a raving 5-star review, screenshot it before you submit, and send it to daisy@strongmomsfitness.com. And you will be eligible. And once a month, I pick a lovely lady who gave an awesome review to win one program of their choice. So your review really helps other people find my show. And so as a thank you, once a month, I choose the review that really has had the most impact and will help other women to really kind of appreciate the show and the information on the show. So I want to award that person a free program of their choice. And I know that you're not going to want to miss that. So definitely do that as soon as you can. So before we jump in to our guest today, I can't get my stoke down. I'm like literally grinning from ear to ear about my guest today. I have got female calisthenics fitness coach who is also a mom, and her name is Grace Kavadlo. And she's going to be here with me today. We're going to be chatting about mom life, calisthenics, how to get involved in that, or, even how more women can start getting involved in calisthenics, which is really super important. So I wanted to bring her on as a guest because calisthenics has really allowed me to improve upon my strength and my confidence. And it is really a style of working out that I don't see too many females involved in. And I really want the opportunity to start changing that. Now, my love for calisthenics started as kind of a branch off from CrossFit in an attempt to improve my CrossFit gymnastic skills. So I decided to take some local gymnastics classes, and man, it was hilarious. My local gymnastics gym had an open gym hours every Tuesday. So I called them up and scheduled the class. Now, the class was described to me and listed as, for adults and for people of all ages. But when I got there, It was seriously just a group of 12-year-old girls, and I looked like a total fool, and I must say that I probably gave the girls' fathers, like, some free entertainment for that night, but that's, like, a whole other story altogether. So, after that humiliation, I kept on inquiring about adult-specific, um, gymnastic type programs in my area. And at that time, I still did not realize that calisthenics was an option. So I found this amazing little pole fitness studio. And wow, and it was definitely life changing. I met some amazing women, and I really started to improve upon my pushing and pulling strength. And I had a blast while I was doing it. The class, and I can't recommend pole fitness more, once you get over the stigma of it, it is a great workout. The class was just, like, so enjoyable. I started to really focus a lot of my time on it, and I really did get amazingly strong from it. And not only, that, I improved my flexibility, which is something that I do struggle with. So the only problem with the pole fitness is it didn't transfer exactly to what I was looking for in CrossFit. It didn't really kind of help my performance. So one afternoon, I was searching Google on how I can improve my pull-ups, and I came across this guy. His name is Al Kavadlo, and he is like the calisthenics like master. He was so strong and ripped, and it's like seemed like he could do a million pull-ups. So I knew that I was on the right track. I knew that he was my guy. So I followed him. I got all his books. I used his apps, and I started dominating my pull-ups. And I was enjoying it so much and was totally hooked, so much so that I eventually ventured out to an outdoor calisthenics park about an hour from my house. And I was excited to kind of get going. I saw this place existed. I changed immediately, jumped in my car, and headed to the park. And when I got there, um, I was a little like discouraged and intimidating and overwhelmed because there was not one chick out there, other than maybe like the cheerleader chicks, um, like clapping at their, new boyfriends. But there was not like one chick that was attempting to work out at all. And it was just full of these huge buff guys. And yeah, I was super intimidated. So I was really reluctant to make a fool out of myself. And I was a little bit nervous to jump into a park like that and work out next to these huge guys. I knew they didn't want like a little girl like me hogging up their gym time or their routine. So I pretty much just hung around until everyone left and kind of did my workout alone. And I was kind of slightly discouraged and disappointed in myself. So when I got home, I was still a little bummed and shocked that there weren't more women involved in calisthenics, at least that I could find online or that I knew existed. So yeah, my sad story here is coming to an end. But with that, I have found my girl. So not too long ago, I found the answer to female calisthenics, and that is Grace Kavadlo, who's here with me today. She is the wife of Al Kavadlo, and she totally has what it takes to take women's calisthenics to the next level. Now, not only is Grace this bodyweight ninja, but she is a super involved mom, personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and creator of the online calisthenics program Diesel Grace. Now, I wanted to bring her on the podcast today to share with you how awesome calisthenic workouts can be, and that calisthenics can be modified during pregnancy and postpartum and be an amazing workout. So I also wanted to bring her on the show so that you can learn some different types of workouts that are available to you. And of course, in a time where a lot of gyms are currently closed at the moment, and maybe you're looking for a workout that is super easy to do at home and requires minimal equipment, calisthenics is definitely up there for you because really you are using body weight. And of course, that is something that we all have. So let's chat with Grace. All righty. So today I have with me Grace Kavadlo. Thank you so much, Grace, for taking the time out of your busy day to chat with me on the Strong Moms Fitness podcast. And I am so excited to hear kind of your fitness and your calisthenics journey and kind of how you've taken that through motherhood. Now, for our listeners and viewers today, I had the pleasure of doing an impromptu workout with Grace and her Zoom class this morning. And she totally kicked my butt. I will say that I've got like a little shakiness in the arms and the legs. So that's what I know. It's been an awesome workout. And the most important thing, especially now during this lockdown, is we did not use a single piece of equipment. And I was shaking and, and burning during the whole thing. So it's not a huge equipment investment. And I've noticed a lot of equipment is hard to come by during this time too. So I really want you guys to get a chance to learn more about Grace and what she does, because the body weight movement is definitely in full effect here and super important this time. So before we kind of get started and jump in on some questions, I'm going to give Grace the opportunity to share with us her fitness background and kind of how she got into calisthenics and when she kind of started getting into calisthenics a little bit more, and I guess more of your journey, like pre-motherhood calisthenics. Like, how did this all started? Like, were you always fit and athletic, and were you always a personal trainer? I'd love to hear more.
Thank you also for having me, Daisy, today. I'm super excited to talk to you and tell you about my journey. So growing up, I pretty much was just always outdoors, never really any formal athletic training. I did some sports in school, mostly like running and track, a little bit of gymnastics when I was younger, but nothing like, pro level or anything like that. That's where I learned how to do my cartwheels and stuff. But basically, I was training, up until high school. And then high school came and I was just like partying. I grew up in Miami, and Miami's a really big party town. So that's all I was doing. So pretty much from like high school till up in my 20s, I wasn't doing any kind of exercise. I moved to Los Angeles when I was about 23, I want to say. And that's where I started practicing yoga. And yoga was really my first introduction back into training, like exercise as an adult. So I took an outdoor class and I was just completely like in love with the practice from the first time I stepped onto my mat. So I quickly signed up to become a yoga instructor. I did a teacher training, and that was pretty much my first intro into body weight training. So I was doing yoga for a while and it was really great. I loved teaching. And then at a CrossFit gym opened up across from one of the studios that I was working at. And that's where I started getting into strength training. And I was like, what is this? This is interesting. This is a cool new way to train. I had never picked up a weight before then, like dumbbell, nothing. So that was my first introduction to kettlebell training and the ollie lifting that they do there. But really my favorite part of all those things that we used to do, all those modalities they trained, was the gymnastics part. I loved the handstand push-ups. I loved the pistol squats. So that's kind of what the classes that I would always sort of seek. I was like, oh, I don't want to do the ollie lifting. I was just naturally gravitating towards that and the kettlebell stuff. So then I became, so of course, unfortunately, I became injured doing CrossFit throughout my back. I had never felt anything like that in my life. And I was really freaked out. I was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. So a friend of mine, my roommate, was like, hey, you should check out. I was really bummed because I hadn't been training and I was on a really good roll. And one of my friends was like, hey, you should check out this guy, Al Kavadlo. He's got this YouTube channel and all he does is body weight stuff. And I think it'd be a good way for you to kind of get back into training. I was a little bit traumatized. Injury can definitely make you traumatized. So that's when I started watching these videos and I was like, this is amazing. This is cool stuff I could do right here from home. So that's when I started training for my first pull-up. And I was never able to do pull-ups even when I was in CrossFit. I was always doing bands and everything like that. And once I made that my goal, and it took me forever. I achieved it. I did the progressions that he outlined. I also did a little bit of Convict conditioning, which is another great body weight book. And I got my first pull-up, and that was just it for me. I was like, I need to teach people how to do this. Like, that was like, what a love at first pull kind of deal. So I became that's when during this time, by the way, I was also still teaching yoga and I had also become kettlebell certified. But then really, like, once I trained for that pull-up and got it, I just was obsessed with the body weight. I knew that that's really where I wanted to specialize and focus on. So I went to one of my future husband's workshops, and then eventually to the progressive calisthenics workshop. And I became certified calisthenics instructor. And then pretty much I've had the opportunity to train with him and teach workshops with him. And so that's how basically calisthenics kind of came into my life.
That's awesome. It's so funny because, I would say Al was also the first person that got me, in his books, that got me into calisthenics. So, and also I shared a story, before you came on, of also how, I was struggling with pull-ups, and I was Googling, how to perfect your pull-up, and Al came up. So, so our story totally is totally jiving here because I was in the CrossFit. I loved the gymnastics, and I was actually really good at kipping pull-ups. But when it came to strict pull-ups, there, of course, I was like, I need a band. You take momentum out of the exercise, and it's so different. So that's why I really loved how Al's books was able to kind of progress upon it, and I was sold from then on because it really changed me. And I sustained a neck injury, which left one of my hands numb every time I did a kipping pull-up. So bringing it back to basics, taking some of that momentum out of some of the CrossFit movements, taking some of the time away, the speed away, definitely does wonders when it comes to, retraining, rebuilding, taking things back to their foundation. So I really appreciate that you kind of brought that up, because I'm sure a lot of people I'm sure everyone here has sustained some sort of injury, especially when you're doing a lot of high intensity, heavy weights, heavy lifting. Sometimes it's just, it's inevitable. It's a matter of time. Maybe you didn't have a good sleep the night before. Maybe you pushed it. You're trying to compete with someone that maybe you weren't ready for. So I'm glad that you introduced that a little bit, because I do want to talk about that a little bit later. Now, I want to first hear about what your workouts looked like during pregnancy and kind of shortly thereafter, and if calisthenics were involved with that. Were they part of your pregnancy and postpartum?
Well, before I got pregnant, so like I said, I got a pretty good baseline. Like, once I got involved in calisthenics, I was all about like, I would see a move and I'd be like, I want to try to train for that. I want to try and train for that. Like everything, like the human flag, the pull up, the muscle up. So it's like, I had all these goals. So when we were talking about the idea of, having a baby, everybody was all like, all my trainer friends were like, oh, you're going to be so diesel and strong. You're going to be killing it the entire time you're pregnant. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm excited about this. So When I became pregnant, though, was a completely different story. So the first 3 months that I was pregnant, basically I had hyperemesis. So I was not only morning sickness, I was throwing up all day. Like I could not hold anything down. So basically that was the first 4 months of like, I had to take like a supplement just to kind of keep me like from being nauseous all the time. I remember walking to the train to go meet a client, and on my way to the train, just having to be like, I have to throw up, like throwing up on the side and throwing up on the side. So I was so nauseous that I could not even do one workout, not even for like the first 3 months. I just couldn't even think about moving. So that completely threw my first trimester. Like there was barely anything. Moving in, I had a couple between my like 4th to like 5th month. There was like a little bit of time where I wasn't as sick. A lot of the sickness kind of dissipated. I was still once a day at least throwing up, but then I started being like, you know what, I need to do something. I need to move. I had lost, if anything, I hadn't even gained any weight. I lost a ton of weight. Wow. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try and introduce some things back. So I started doing light squatting, some yoga stuff, some, you know, cat cows, child's pose, just stuff to kind of make my body feel a little less achy. Then 6 months came and I got the worst like sciatic pain I've never experienced like that. Like it was about like almost like my injury from like when I threw my back out doing those ollie lifting and CrossFit. I couldn't move my leg. I was literally dragging my leg around. So I could stand and walk, and then I would have to, you know, in New York, you walk everywhere. So I was walking around with a yoga block because in the train before pandemic, you could never find a seat on the train. So I would pull my block out, and not to say that New Yorkers aren't nice, but a lot of times they don't stand up for a pregnant woman to sit, okay? I'd have to pull my block out and sit because the pain was so awful in my leg. I could not even do anything. So again, I was just doing bare minimum stuff. And then I started doing, basically the rest of my pregnancy was just doing physical therapy exercises that I had to do. So it was the most, in terms of making gains or whatever, like there was no headway made. It was super light, mostly restorative yoga poses and physical therapy exercises during my pregnancy. It was a bust.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being real on that, because, you know, I think that a lot of people are unrealistic of, you know, of what can happen. We have this vision or dream in our mind of, or even people have expectations of us too, like you had mentioned. You know, well, Grace, you should be badass. You should be out there, you know, at 32 weeks, just, you know, rocking these pull-ups, these weighted pull-ups. But yeah, life kind of sometimes, yes, I do agree. Life gets in the way. And did you find that you needed to shift mentally with, you know, with this, with some of the limitations and struggles that you had? Like what kind of kept you going, you know, through this while you were puking?
Yeah. You know, luckily I worked in a really great gym at the time, Momentum Fitness in the Upper West Side. And my boss was super accommodating to my situation. So I was teaching classes still. And that's one thing that I kind of started to shift from, was like taking away the focus of my training be like, it was all about me and me making gains and me showing off all these cool moves that I could do. And I was like, you know what? My body's telling me right now that this is not what I need to be doing. I need to be shifting that focus. So I started really focusing on trying to make other people better. You know, like I really started honing my teaching voice and just trying to break down these moves for like complete beginners, you know, and just trying to just take away like that need for like feeding my ego of like, I need to be the best at this, to, you know what, I'm going to just remember what I learned while I was doing this and share that with other people. So I started focusing on teaching classes and, you know, and just doing what I could in terms of like making my body heal and support this pregnancy without it, you know, being any more painful than it was. So I guess it was definitely, it was very humbling. I really had to like step away from, you know, what it was that I defined as like training, and it made me just a better trainer, I feel like, instead, you know, because now I could really relate to women that maybe had experienced this or felt intimidated by these movements, and I could just be like, hey man, this is what I could do, and I would demo what I could in my classes, and then so of course when you do anything like anything, even just hanging from a bar when you're pregnant, everybody's like, oh. So I just got really good at teaching the basics and breaking them down for people.
Well, that's good. That's good that you're able to sort of reframe that time, because like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people struggle with that ego portion, especially if you are, if fitness or being athletic is your identity deep down. It's something that's ingrained and you're like, well, it's expected of me, or this is who I am, in a deeper sense. So I need to maintain this. And a lot of time athletes have been taught to stifle their like inner pain and like just fight through it, just keep going. And anyone in any sort of, high collegiate or, even local competitive CrossFitter, they experience that. They're like being yelled at constantly to fight through it, just keep pushing. There's 20 seconds left, just do a few more reps. And I really love how you're really speaking on, this is not a time to, boost your ego or to live up to other people's expectations. It's your time to actually figure out what your body is asking you for, and following through with that. So I really love how you kind of spoke on that. That's really super empowering. And you actually use that as time to improve upon your coaching skills. So whereas you might not have had that time or opportunity in taking it down to basics, because even just taking your class, how you were explaining and talking through a lot of the movements, which I haven't done all of them. And I can definitely say that, your voice is really descriptive and kind of how you talk it through. So I can really see that you've kind of worked on your craft. So I really appreciate that. My next question for you is kind of, when did you start, working out again and kind of when did you kind of start turning up that badass dial and get back into things, after your baby?
So I ended up having and that was another thing. Talk about expectations. Everybody was like, oh, you're so strong. Your hips are so mobile. That baby's just going to fall right out of you. Well, that baby did not want to come out of me at all. Okay. So I had to have a C-section, unfortunately, after like maybe over 30 hours of labor. And she was not budging. So I was exhausted and I was getting a fever, and they ended up having a C-section. So I waited the 6 weeks that they told me before working out again. And then basically I just did I was so traumatized. Like that was just like one of the craziest surgeries I'd ever had. Like I've never felt so disconnected from my core before like that. It just felt like my body from like here down wasn't even mine anymore. So that's really when I started once I was cleared to work out, I basically just started revisiting the basics, like pulling up a chair and doing like a sit down on the chair, stand back up. And that was my version of a squat, and doing like really regressed push-ups. So everything was just basically like all that stuff that I had taken for granted, all that strength that, I had built up was just basically gone. And I'd never felt that before. It was going back to feeling like just really humbled by what my body had gone through. So basically, it was just really revisiting all the basics, all those first progressions that I used to be like, I'll never have to do that. I'll just teach these things, but I'm never going to be doing that. I'm so athletic, Yeah, right. So I went back to just basically doing the super regressed versions of everything. And thankfully, with my knowledge of breaking down calisthenics exercises, like what I learned in the progressive calisthenics and what I've learned from coaching really complete beginners, I just started taking on my own advice and just starting from the beginning again. So it was a lot of rebuilding my core with like bridges and Kegels and belly breathing. Just like slowly working up my ranges of motion and working up my strength towards, and even now I'm still not even where I was before pregnancy. So
Gotcha.
it's been a long journey.
And how old is your little one?
She is almost 2.5.
Okay. Yeah. So you're on the journey there. You're still there. You're still on the train.
Yeah.
Now, have you have you worked with any pregnant women trying to pursue calisthenics and postpartum women?
Yes.
In your time? Okay. Now, do you work with a lot of modifications, or what does that look like when you're, working out with someone who's either pregnant or newly postpartum?
It's funny because again, that's what's beautiful about like this profession is seeing different bodies move, So I had, for example, like 2 different women that I trained before I got pregnant. There was this lady I used to train, and she worked out with me like hard. Like she was doing kettlebell swings and like push-ups and basically like some pretty intense exercises up until the day she even planned a session with me. She's like, I might give birth tomorrow, but if not, I'll make a session with you or whatever. And she planned a session with me. And that day she canceled because she ended up giving birth, had a super easy labor, 2 hours, and the kid was out. And then versus training another woman who was super delicate. Again, she had a lot of the morning sickness, and we really had to ease up everything we used. We did a lot of, I love the TRX for modifications for calisthenic stuff. So we did a lot of like TRX assisted squats, standing rows to kind of help with the posture for, because, you get that set, like everything center of gravity moving forward, breathing exercises, mostly mobility for the hips, just based on like what she was feeling. I like using props, like yoga props are great too. Like blocks are really helpful. So bridges are also really good for women during that time. So basically a lot of the stuff that I felt like I wish I could have done during my time, but it just changes based on who you have in front of you. So I've just had different experiences with women, and they've all been different, with especially women going through pregnancy. So it's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on that. What was the biggest lesson that you learned, from pregnancy that you would probably, have changed, or, if next time around, what would you do differently, or would you just kind of try to ride the wave, as best as you can? Because
just trying to ride that wave. I mean, like I said, the worst part was the nausea and the sciatica part. But, now that I have a knowledge of like PT exercises that helped me through that time, I would probably start doing those earlier on. And, just for the first 3 months, I feel like it's such a delicate time for me, like, especially if I feel that nausea, it's like, I don't feel like working out. So just to kind of be mentally prepared that, my body might betray me. It might just want to do its own thing, and it's working hard already by harboring a life and growing and putting all of that energy towards that. So I need to just remember, again, just stepping out of that ego and just trying to write it out.
Sure. And I wanted to talk to you, and I know in some of your videos, and I'm a huge proponent of, and I'm sure you are for many reasons, including yoga and all this, but breathing, like you could totally get a whole workout in with just breathing and totally benefit. Do you have anything special, your experiences with breathing, or in training, or even just with yourself? Because I know a lot of women just look at it and they just poop, it's like poo-poo it. And I'd really love to hear you kind of advocate on breathing a little bit.
Well, I almost feel like I'm actually feel good in terms of how my exercises progress, like as an adult. So I told you how I did yoga first, and I feel like that was such an integral part, because the breathing for most people is so like involuntary. They don't really think twice about it. Their body just naturally doing it for them, and they just kind of don't even think about it. And I'm so glad that I almost feel like I got an edge before I started getting strength training, that yoga is such a big proponent about like conscious breathing. And I'm so happy that I found that before I did any strength training, because I really feel that the only reason I was able to get ahead and really progress so quickly in those exercises, like the strength ones later, was because I had such a deep knowledge of how important breath is with making gains in exercises, with pushing through tension, and like allowing you to, utilize that tension to be stronger, lift a heavier weight, because you're able to hold that breath in your stomach and like use it to power that weight overhead. So I almost feel like again, it's just one of those things that people really don't think about. But if you really do like, and I've seen the effects of it, like diaphragmatic breathing, like just sitting there and really, instead of focusing on breathing into our chest, which is kind of what we do, but like taking that breath down into your stomach and constantly expanding and pulling your abs in, you're working your abs all the time. And people are like constantly doing, you could do all the crunches in the world, man. But I feel like if you're just doing breathing, if you're doing conscious belly breathing all day, that is going to work your abs. Like that's going to use like that nice, it's also going to detox your body, help you with weight loss. Like there's so many benefits to it. Even stress, you know, when we're stressed, our body produces cortisol. Where does it tend to store? In the belly fat. So how can we get rid of this? How can we control our stress? Well, instead of focusing on what our mind is doing, we're focusing on, like, you know what? I'm just going to breathe through this because there's nothing here that I can't control that without excuse me. I made that out. The mind, the breath is really strong, and it can really overpower a lot of these things that we feel are out of our control, like stress. So to me, like in terms of like mental health and everything, like whenever I ever have any kind of stress or anything, I always brought it back to the breath. And not only as a physical like exercise, but as like a mental just detox and just wellness, you know? So yeah, it's definitely one of those underutilized tools that people just kind of don't think about. And it's always one of those things that I like to include, whether it be and focus on in my classes, whether it be a yoga class, whether it be my calisthenics class. Like I'm always telling people, like, use your breath. Like your breath is what's going to power you through it. You know, your muscles can only take you so far, but your breathing will take you not only into that workout and through it, but also through your day too. So hell yeah for the breath. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, cool. I really like that. That's awesome because yeah. And yeah, through those times where maybe you're too nauseous to work out, breathing is totally great. And it could have potential. And I notice, I hear it a lot in women that just focusing on the breath can help with nausea and sort of that reflex mechanism. So definitely, I know it when you're kind of so hardcore with your workouts that breathing is like thrown and ignored to the wayside, but it is so huge. And I think it's one of the building blocks that I incorporate in my programs big time. And I'm really glad that you utilize it also. So I want to kind of shift a little bit because I was browsing online on your photos and they're amazing. Like all your planches and on all these crazy things that you're doing. But I also see that sometimes you've got your daughter in there. So do you work out, like, do you do set workouts where you're working out with your daughter and like, what does that look like? Because I mean, we have so many women here that have a toddler running around and they're trying to get their workouts in. So do you think it's a viable way to work out and to utilize your little one or have them emulate you? Or can you speak on workouts with kids?
Totally. You know, in the beginning, of course, I would use her. Like when I was first working on rebuilding my strength, I started and I felt confident enough in a movement where I could, like, for example, hold her while she was like in my arms, and I would squat, or I would do like an archer squat. And I started to like put her in the harness, and I was like, this is kind of cool. So it was like a little extra weight, and it was a good way to kind of include her, but also get my time in too. So I was basically mostly stay at home and Al was working. So I was always with her. So if she was sleeping, then I would try to get like a workout in. So it kind of made my workouts a little more efficient. Like I used to be like, before my daughter, I would work out for like 2-3 hours at the park, take my time, warm up, talk, record. Now it's like, okay, I got 20 minutes, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to just do it while she's sleeping or whatever, while she's napping, you know, and I would do just squats. That's what's so great about bodyweight stuff. It's like no equipment, just planks, you know, abs on the floor, bridges, squats, pushes, and you're good. So as she got older, she would watch me work out, and then sometimes she would kind of like be interested and she would crawl towards us, or she would like emulate me. Like I would do a headstand and she would I have videos of her like trying to like almost like a down dog kind of headstand. And then same thing, when she was like past a year old, I was doing an animal crawl workout one day while she was outside playing, and she just climbed onto my back and I'm just crawling with her in it. And it definitely amped up my workout. So it's cool because she knows like what we're doing is exercise, but I don't want it to be like, oh, because we exercise. Like, I don't want her to like grow up resenting it or like making us like, your parents make you do something and you're just kind of like, I don't want to do. But then later on, you like appreciate it. I want her to come into it on her own. So I try to incorporate it as much while she's playing. So what's great about living in New York, there's lots of playgrounds around here. So I take her to the playground, and while she's playing, I'm repping out. I'm doing some dips on the corner. I'm doing some squats. And then she'll kind of come around and I'll play with her and I try to incorporate into it. So yeah, it's been interesting because it's definitely changed the way I work out, but for the better in a way, because I feel like she gets excited seeing me playing with her, and I have the energy to do it now, like I don't ever want to feel like I can't keep up with my own kid, so
Sure,
yeah. So I just try to incorporate her as much as I can. And if not, parallel play, as they say, she's playing over there, mommy's repping out over here, and we're all just, having a good time across the board.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, I think it teaches them if they can passively see what's going on, that fitness is important, then I think it'll like in the back of their mind, it'll always be there that, fitness is super important. And this is kind of some of the values that my family is, incorporate. So I really love that. Now, when you were doing your parallel workouts, were there other parents that were just like, what is going on here? Or are you starting a movement here where other moms are going to join in with you? Or
what's funny is before this all happened, the whole pandemic and everything happened, my daughter, we were playing outside, and I've had moms always come up to me like in the middle of playing. They're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Are you gymnastics, or are you an acrobat? Like or are you in a circus? That's another one people say. And I'm like, no, I'm not in any of those things. I'm a trainer. And I've actually gotten clients from doing that. Mother moms see me and they're like, oh, cool, I want to do this too. So it's actually been a good way to get business. But before, I remember one day I was at a playground and I was working out, and I had a couple moms again ask me like, oh, do you teach classes? And I was like, it was going into summer. So it was like March, or before everything kind of, hit the fan. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to start teaching a summer class here at the playground. So I had an idea to make like a mom boot camp style thing, like a donation based one. And if you're already here at the playground, come join us. We're going to do a little workout. And then of course, COVID and everything, and all the playgrounds are closed. And I was like, okay, there goes that idea. But that's what kind of made me want to do the Zoom classes that you took. I was like, you know what? I missed being able to teach again. And so that's kind of what inspired me to do that. And as you notice, most of the people that come to my classes are females. I have a couple moms that take my class. And it's just a really good thing because calisthenics, when I first got into it and I first moved to New York and I would come to all these playgrounds with my husband Al, we'd go to Tompkins Square Park in Manhattan, and that's like a big calisthenics hotspot. And most of the people there are men. So it's kind of cool that I always felt like I had this responsibility to get women into this and to get women like doing this and being like, you know what? Women can do this too. Sure, you're going to go to a playground. You might see a lot of these guys. And I remember I always had all these ideas for videos, and I wanted to make a video like playground etiquette, and how a lot of these guys, it's really diesel guys. They look really intimidating to work around with, but some of them are so friendly and like gentlemen. And it's just like, it's such a good atmosphere. So anyways, that was my idea. I wanted to start like a whole mom, like a strong, diesel mom movement, which is what. But of course, kind of things went in a different direction, and I ended up making my program Diesel Grace instead.
Cool.
But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd definitely like to talk about Diesel Grace a little more in a little bit. But I could really see, of course, pre-COVID, how, when I go to the park, you see the kids are playing, doing their thing. And what are the moms doing? They're texting, or, they're playing with their phones. They're checking email, and they're totally disconnected. And I really like your idea of doing some, parallel play, getting in there, but starting a new movement, getting ourselves away from our phones and just getting ourselves a little more active. I mean, you're going to be at the park, you're going to be there for, let's say, half an hour. Well, you can't go home later and complain you didn't have time to work out. I'm sorry. It doesn't fly. There's so many fun things that you could have utilized your time with a lot better. So, I mean, I'm totally game for this movement here. I think, as soon as parks open up again and this is legit, then, you're definitely got to get out there and get those texting moms off their phones. Now, what is your best advice for someone that wants to start incorporating more calisthenics movements in their workout regime, or, start making that transition over to, a calisthenics based program? How does someone kind of get started?
Well, the good thing is there's a lot of resources out there. Now I almost feel like, especially with this pandemic hit, all of a sudden, every trainer that was relying on like gym equipment and everything, all of a sudden became a bodyweight expert. So there's definitely a lot of resources out there. I guess you just have to sift through the ones that work, Some people that reach out to me, they look at me and they're like, oh, you do yoga. They see what I do is yoga. Is that something that I should do? And I'm like, maybe it might be something you like. It's a good place to start with the breathing and everything. It's a good way. I feel like yoga is just always a good place to start, because their main point of that practice, people look at it and they're like, oh, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. And I'm like, yoga is not even about being flexible. It's really about connecting the mind, like strengthening your mind and body connection and interweaving the breath between all that. So I feel like that's a good place to start, because when people tend to start to work out from, let's say, not having done it in a while, they tend to just go hard. Like, I'm going to just work out every day. And they put all these unrealistic expectations on themselves to get strong in 1 week. And I think when you're sifting through all these thousands of programs that there is online, you need to pick the ones that are more tailored to your goals. Okay. And a lot of people think that fitness is a quick fix thing, and that's not their fault, because there's all this media out there that's telling you you're going to get abs in 6 minutes if you do this workout, or you're going to lose 200 pounds in 2 days. It's just like, wait a second. Fitness is not a quick fix thing. It is a habit that you need to learn how to implement into your life. So I always tell people the best way to start is sprinkling it in. Find a workout that you like. It could be maybe just one teacher that you see online and you vibe with her. You're like, hey, this is pretty cool. I think personally, most people should seek out personal training in the beginning, because a lot of these videos that you see online that are made for like a ton of people, it's a very generalized program, and it might not be where you should be starting out. So maybe find somebody that's a personal trainer. There's ways now you could do Zoom sessions online. So that's a good place to start. If you don't want to do that, then the body weight stuff, my husband, Al Kavadlo, has lots of resources. I have lots of resources. Convict conditioning is a great book too. There's a lot of different programs out there. The Diesel Grace program is a great program too. I specifically chose those movements because they're all to be done, as you know, without any equipment. So I feel like if you find something that doesn't require you to have to get a bunch of equipment, start with yoga, then try to start working on some body weight strengthening. Not that there's anything wrong with resistance training. If that's something that you're interested in, do it. But I feel like before you start picking up any weights, you should be able to manipulate your own body weight with just a couple basic exercises. Have a good mastery of your squat, have a good push-up, a decent plank before you start deciding to add all these tools, and you might even find longevity wise that maybe resistance training isn't really what you need. Maybe if you're looking for something more for the long term, body weight strength training is, to me, I think, the best modality to go with, because it's just something that you can do right now, where you are, wherever you're standing right now. You could do a push-up, you could do a squat, you could do a plank. You don't need to worry about the bells and whistles of the gym or all these tools, the bands and like the 10,000 things out there. Keep it simple. Start with 1 day a week, maybe the next week, do a second day a week. And if you're liking it, then you can keep progressing, but it's all about just trying to work from the simplest part, work from like breath, then do your body weight. And then if you feel like adding resistance training, then you can go there. But yeah,
Cool.
pretty much.
No, I like that. That's super helpful, especially, again, it speaks volumes during this time where there's no excuse that, what do they say, the COVID-15 or, whatever, there's no excuse there. You have all the equipment that you need right inside, right on your person. So, and then, I used to, of course, hear the, oh, I'm traveling. I don't have to, I can't work out because I'm traveling. Well, that's not an excuse anymore. You can bust some lunges along the beach if you're if you're on vacation or something. You don't need the gym. And that happened to me on a cruise once. I was on a cruise and I was like, oh, they have a gym here, it's great. Well, have you ever been to the gym at a cruise on a cruise ship? It's packed. You can't get on a tread. I was like, how come you can't get on a treadmill? But there's all this deck space to walk out on, and these people choose to be on a treadmill. So, I mean, yeah, you could do, lunges along the deck, there's, it's so versatile. So that's why I really love the calisthenics. So I have a question for you that's kind of, it's actually a selfish question because it's for me. And it's something that I'm currently struggling with, and I'm sure if I'm struggling with it, other women are. So I'm totally plateaued on my pull-ups. I get to about 7 and I just can't break past it. Do you have any tips or advice of how people can get through plateaus? Because I assume that with body weight, maybe it's a little bit easier to kind of plateau since it's harder to change some variables around.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, that's pretty much it, because you're your own variable, right?
Right.
So in terms of pull-ups for women, that is definitely a common issue that I've had with clients as well, where they just they get to a certain number and there's no going past it. The thing with body weight training is it helps to be lean. There's no other way. The leaner you are, the leaner muscle mass you have, the more pull-ups you're going to be able to do. When I was at my leanest and I was cranking out 12 reps of chin-ups in a row, I was at 118 pounds. I am almost 10 pounds heavier than that now. Yeah. So, and now I can't do as many pull-ups.
Okay.
So it helps with pull-ups to be lean. A couple other things that you can do is you can also mess with different grips. That's tend to help me too. Are you doing overhand grips or you're doing chin-up grips?
I'm mainly trying to improve a standard wide grip, pull up. But yeah, if I do chin-ups, I could probably get a few extra in. So maybe before I start to fail with a wide grip, would switching a grip be
changing the grips can
changing
help.
it up?
Also incorporating horizontal rows tends to really be helpful too. If you have a TRX or if you have access to a bar that's, hip up to here, and you could just kind of lay underneath it and do rows, it's another way to kind of add. So you can kind of start with, your pull-ups and then maybe change the grips until you're just completely, and always the important thing to work over plateaus is to stop before your form starts to go. Because if once you're wiggling and you're kipping, you're not really getting that full controlled range of motion. So it's always helped me to stack other pulling exercises beyond just this one, changing the grip. Even just practicing flexed arm hangs can really help in a program too. It depends on the exercise, I guess it is. But yeah, the leaner you get, the more pull-ups, most likely you'll be. Now, of course, there is too lean. You don't want to be lean weight. You want to be lean muscle body mass. So maybe you can even be a small amount too, maybe 3 to 5 pounds. I mean, I really don't know exactly your statistics, but I know it's helped me. The most times I've ever been able to crank out the most amount of reps is when I've been at my leanest. And if you can, you just kind of build the volume on just your pulling stuff, your pulling exercises, switching it up for horizontal rows, switching up your grips, adding in some flexed arm hands, I think might be able to help you. And sometimes also you have to step away from an exercise too. I almost feel like when you're going at it, train it really hard for 3 weeks and then give yourself, step away from it for a week or something. And sometimes it takes a while, I feel for your body to finally just kind of catch up to all that, reduce all that inflammation from working and training and life, and like let your body, your muscles fully form. Maybe when you get back to it after like a week or 2 weeks of taking off, you might feel a little bit stronger on that exercise.
Sweet. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So there's things I can do.
Still 7 you're doing? That's a lot, girl. You should be proud of that, yo.
That's like been my goal forever. Actually, I just turned 40. Wow. And my goal for 40 was to get the 10 pull-ups. And I died at 7. And so it maybe 41 will be my year for 10 pull-ups. So we're still there. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, you still got a year. I think I always try to pick the easiest solution. Like, which is the one that I can work on now? Well, you know what? Maybe I can stand to just slim down a little bit. I'm going to cut the alcohol out. I'm going to cut out the things. Not to say that you're an alcoholic, but this is what some of the things I need to cut out. So cut the wine drinking. I try to lose 3 to 5 pounds and see if that makes it. I bet you just lose a couple pounds and that'll make like a big difference in that. And if not, just try to incorporate all those other pulling variations.
Appreciate that. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I'm sure, if we have postpartum moms, as they continue to, lose some of the baby weight that, it might be easier for them to kind of progress without having to, put in all, huge amounts of time and massive reps and things like that, which
biologically women are just, we have to work harder at pull-ups, and they shouldn't feel like a failure that they can't do them immediately. Like it took me until I was like almost 30 to get my first pull-up. So,
nice.
And then what really helped too is have a bar. Like if you have a way to put a doorway pull-up bar or have access to a bar where you could, every time I used to walk underneath that thing, I would do jumping pull-ups help too. Jump and then pull up the rest of the way. Jump. So do as many control reps as you can. And then after that, how can I regress that? Okay, cool. I'm going to step back a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of momentum and try to get a couple extra reps. And that's how I think it's a good way to kind of build volume, or for some people work up to getting their first pull-up rep.
That's cool. That's actually one of my cheats is I walk by my bar that's in a doorway and I just bust out a couple, and I go about my business. I drop my laundry basket. I do a couple reps there and move along. And then before I know it, by the end of the day, I've, accumulated 30 pull-ups, so that's definitely an easy way to fit that in. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I totally would have not said that. So I want you now to speak on your program, Diesel Grace, because I also just started it and started doing it, a couple days a week, and I'm loving it. So if you could share with our viewers and listeners all about your program, like where you got the inspiration, how people can, find you, get started, all the deets.
Right on. So Diesel Grace had been an idea that I'd had for quite a while, and I just had such a long time in executing it. And if anything, being in the pandemic and not being able to train people as often in person kind of really inspired me. I'm like, I need to reach people. I need to talk more to people, and I need to get this. It made me really like put a little fire under me to finally get this program that I'd been telling people I was going to make for years finally come to fruition. And basically it really was based on coming back from being pregnant and like having to restart like my whole foundation again, because I said I kind of had an edge where I was able to I was strong enough to skip over some of the beginner stuff and just kind of move into harder exercises. But when I wasn't able to play that game anymore, now I'm in this new body and I'm rediscovering myself. I really started to see the value in the fundamentals and just doing an exercise like a squat, like a push-up, but with all your intention in it, like not just trying to get through it. Like, okay, this person's telling me to do 50 reps. So I'm going to try to do them. Even if by the 30th rep, my form is looking like crap. So I started really seeing like, I was like, I want to make a good foundational program that when people come up to me and they say, hey, where can I start? This is where you should start. And a lot of the exercises you've seen before, but some of them I got from the idea from teaching my boot camp classes online, I started being like, oh, these are the exercises that people tend to respond better to, these variations, these modifications. So that's kind of why I wanted it to be like complete beginner. I also wanted to include a breathing exercise in there. So again, mindfulness practice, along with not just, they go really well together with strength, so mindfulness, breath, and, getting strong. So basically it's a beginner program, calisthenics. Pretty much no equipment. You might need a chair, maybe a wall to work out, but it's all stuff that it's done based on time. So it's 3 workouts done over the course of a month. The workouts don't change, but what you do is you're adding time to spend practicing each one. And that's kind of the vibe that I like to have in my class. And when I coach people is, yeah, sure, hypothetically, maybe I would like you to work up to being able to do this many reps. But if that's not where you're at and that's not realistic, I think it's better to focus on the practice of it, the play of it, rather than being like, oh, I can't do this many reps, so I'm discouraged, I'm not strong. And I'm like, no, you can't. If you can work out and do push-ups for 30 seconds, pausing at the top, calming at the bottom, like really focusing on using your entire body to assist you in those reps, you're going to get stronger. So that's why I made it more of like a time-based program, so that it's more open-ended for people. They don't have to be like, oh, by the end of the program, I should be able to do this many reps. Not really. You should just be able to do those exercises a lot better by the end of the month. You should be able to have a basic understanding of what the fundamentals of body weight is before you start looking into all the fancier stuff, like a human flag or even a pull-up or a full back bridge. So that's basically what my idea was when I was designing the program. So pretty much it's $49, and it's a month-long program. Depending on how fast you progress, it might even be longer for you. It might take a little longer for you to get through it. So it could be longer than a month.
Cool. Awesome. And so is usually your suggestion after the program of people to kind of hook up with you on your Zoom workouts and things? Is that kind of the natural progression of your program would be to?
Yeah, that's actually a good thing. Yeah. So the program includes some coaching. So there's a Facebook group that everybody can join, and you can talk about how you're progressing, where you're starting from, what, moves that you need to troubleshoot. And I want to be there to help give as much individual attention as possible. But yeah, that's kind of why I include 2 complimentary Zoom classes if you buy the program, so that people can see. I do integrate some of that stuff in, but I also show where they're leading up to, like where you can go with these movements. Like, don't be stuck on, because I feel like sometimes people get a program and like that's all they're going to do. And that's okay. That's cool to start. And then they get bored of that and then they don't do it again. But I feel like it's good to know that these movements, they're very open-ended. They're open to modifications from like even beginner to like more eventually, depending on how far you want to go down that rabbit hole. There's a world of body weight movements out there that you can have access to if you have a really strong understanding of these basics, these foundational movements. So cool. Yeah, definitely. The class is a good impetus to see, where you can go with this stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, I really like that, because I find, even in my background too, jumping into CrossFit, that there's not really much foundational work. They throw you into these full-blown lifting or body weight movements, which, someone might not be ready for. And unless you have the right coach or you're at the right facility, a lot of places, kind of don't have the time or the resources to really work on the foundation. So I really like that. And I found even with myself, there's a lot of things that, I can do 7 pull-ups. I consider myself a fairly strong person, but then you put me on my hands and knees, and, you want me to balance and I'm like, why am I shaking right now? I've got no weight on me. I feel like there's sometimes a missing link, and I really appreciate, that your program kind of goes in and starts with that first, because I think that's what leads to kind of long-term success with something like calisthenics, and it can certainly help with injury prevention and things like that. So I think that's a totally missed, and you can, and I encourage anyone who considers themselves strong or, buff, whatever, jacked, whatever you want, shredded, to do this stuff, because I think that from that, it will fill in some gaps and you'll be stronger than ever before. So I'd like to invite everyone to check out the program, Diesel Grace. I couldn't refer it more to everyone. I've really been enjoying it and really liking the format of it. And I really love how calisthenics is more than just a workout. I find it's like adult playing, in some way. So you don't really have to feel like, okay, now I'm on the treadmill for 30 minutes. Then I go and do back for, 20 minutes. And then I'm going to go do my buys. And then I'm going to do a 20-minute cool down. There's so much more, fun and flexible, not flexibility in the stretching sense, but, in in how you can, do calisthenics itself. It's really, it's just like a huge new world for a lot of people that I think that would open a lot of doors and really improve a lot of strength. So how does someone sign up for your program? Where do they go? How do they find you online?
Yes. So I'm pretty active on Instagram and on Facebook. On Instagram it's Grace _ and my name Kavadlo, which is a fun one to spell. KAV like Victor, AD like dog, LO, Grace Kavadlo. And on Facebook, I guess you could basically just search my name and I'll have a page pop up. But as far as signing up for the program, you can do that straight through me. You just, shoot me an email. It's my name, gracekavadlo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on either of my social media platforms, and I'll be happy to sign you up for that pretty much. And like I said, it includes 2 complimentary Zoom classes as well.
Cool. All right. Well, I am going to, if you didn't catch that, and still confused on how to spell Kavadlo, it's all going to be in the show notes. So if you're driving or you're momming and you don't have time to write it down, once we're done, chatting, everything's going to be in the show notes. It's going to be linked to Grace's pages and social media so that, you don't have to guess. I really want to get everyone a chance to check out this amazing program. Gyms are closed down. Some parks aren't open. This is the time to do it. I think this is really the chance. And of course, like, Grace has said, you can do this with your kids around. It's probably going to be fun for them too. Especially when you have a timer going. Kids love the timer. They're like, stop, start. They're really into it. So definitely, ladies, you're not going to regret this. This is a great program. So I want to thank Grace so much for joining us today. It's been amazing. I feel like we've learned so much and we've talked a lot of different things. So I really hope the listeners are enjoying this. I know that I did. I'm just really stoked that you were here today. Like I said, I loved that Zoom class. So, if you are more of a, kind of a group person, her Zoom classes are awesome also. So, I couldn't plug you better than that. I definitely love where you're going. And I really look forward to see, once all this lockdown stuff and the world kind of gets back to normal, I'm really excited to see what you come up with next. And I really hope that one day I'm walking through a park in New York and I see a bunch of women, busting out some calisthenics and some, and then the men sitting down watching. So I'd love to see that. So I appreciate that. Thanks so much for joining me today, Grace.
Thank you so much for having me, Daisy. It was awesome talking to you.
All righty. Wasn't that awesome? I bet you definitely want to go and check out Diesel Grace online. I have also spent some time binging on her YouTube videos, and I also did a drop in, like we chatted, in one of her group Zoom classes. And of course, I am, still pumped from that, a little bit of shaking going on. So I couldn't recommend her more. So I do also want to let you know that if you are a mom who is struggling with leakage, diastasis, prolapse, or if you are someone that wants to get back to the gym safely after baby without injuries, I want you to check out my website, STRONG.MOMS.FITNESS.com/challenge, and get on the wait list, because this month I'm going to be running my free Fit After Pregnancy Challenge, and you don't want to miss it. So thanks for tuning in today. We'll see you later on the Strong Moms Fitness podcast. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Strong Moms Fitness podcast. Now remember, go subscribe so that you are the first to know as soon as new episodes drop. Also, be sure you don't miss out on your chance to win a free program of your choice from Strong Moms Fitness. All you have to do is leave a 5-star review. Screenshot it before you submit and send it to Daisy at StrongMomsFitness.com. Your review helps other people find our show. And as a thank you, once a month we choose the review that makes us all warm and tingly inside and award that lucky lady a free program of their choice. So do it now. It could be you. See you next time, you badass mom, you.